I'm Tammy and I'm from Classroom Mechanics. I'm really excited to be introducing you to our Montessori Substitute Orientation. Whether you are a parent interested in supporting your child's Montessori classroom, an assistant hired to float between classrooms to support absent teachers, a career substitute, or an administrator asked to step in frequently, this workshop intends to orient you to Montessori methodology and give you the tools to step into a classroom and hit the ground running. I'm honored to be your guide on your side as we journey through 3 videos that combine together to increase your understanding of and your advocacy for Montessori learning environment. Like most adults working in the Montessori field, I was educated in a conventional school setting where learning was directed by my teacher, my movement was restricted and topics prescribed, and my success was measured by how well I could recall the material learned at a collective pace and learning modality. While this model may serve a few students, it unfortunately doesn't meet the learning needs of many. Fortunately, I found Montessori education and began my career as a classroom assistant, forever changing my understanding of what education means. So let's take a moment now and reflect upon what you knew about education before you came to Montessori as an adult. What expectations do you have for education? Go ahead and pause the video, reflect, and jot down your thoughts in the user manual. Then come on back. For me, when I learned more about Montessori, I found myself examining the model of education I knew, and it took some time to recognize that I needed to unlearn certain expectations from my educational background and experiences, and to shift my paradigm of what education might look like to fully acclimate to Montessori. My first visit to a Montessori school revealed a beautiful environment where students seemed to magically engage with their learning and their peers in an atmosphere of respect and curiosity. Really appealing. I had an amazing lead guide and school director at that first school, and the onboarding process was like an invisible web of support, and I felt acclimated about 6 months into the school year. And I recognized the familiar feeling of adjusting to a foreign culture, and that I was undergoing a kind of transformation like one does when traveling with an open mind and heart. So with this workshop, in conjunction with your on-the-ground onboarding process at the school you'll be substituting within, it is my hope that you will have enough tools to get you started and to continue to grow in understanding of the educational model that is Montessori. The name Montessori has many meanings. The first is from the family from which Maria Montessori was born. The second is a method of education she founded. Third, the name is applied to schools, organizations, the businesses that support them, and an entire Montessori movement. To help us understand Montessori philosophy, it helps to understand the context of her life and consequent creation by its founder, Dr. Maria Montessori. So as you can see, Dr. Montessori focused on cultivating a more nobler or peaceful humankind through working with the child, and was influenced by educational philosophers that came before and were contemporaneous with her. As she wrote in Education and Peace, the child is capable of developing and giving us tangible proof of the possibility of a better humanity. They have shown us the true process of the construction of human beings. We have seen children totally changed as they acquire a love for things and as their sense of order, discipline, and self-control develops within them. The child is both a hope and promise for humankind. As a medical doctor, trained anthropologist, and innovative thinker, Dr. Montessori developed a scientific viewpoint of the child and their development and referred to her methodology as a scientific pedagogy. Today, educators are able to see an amalgam of neuroscience, psychology, and biology that form the essence of the science behind learning, familiar to Montessori teachers. And to assist you in unlearning a traditional paradigm, I'd like to cover key principles of Montessori education for you here. Each of these fundamental principles and the tenets created to uphold them are a starting point for you to better understand what you're experiencing in a Montessori environment. It's likely you came to Montessori because these very tenets resonated with you personally. And to be clear, this isn't in any way inclusive of all the learning that needs to be done to understand the whole of Montessori philosophy, as that would require a program that leads to a Montessori certification. My hope is to reveal these essential beliefs by interpreting what has become Montessori jargon and to further explain commonly misunderstood concepts. So it's really common for strangers, friends, or family to ask, so what is Montessori? My friend and fellow Montessori parent, Joey Fitz, came up with this 15-second elevator speech delivered to answer this very question. He said, Montessori is a method of educating children which focuses on free choice in a prepared environment based on the belief that children have a natural inclination to learn and the adult is there to guide. So keep this idea in mind as we work through these many concepts, as I'm going to ask you to synthesize what you've learned into your own elevator speech. Before we delve into the realm of the child, let's look first at the types of Montessori schools you might be substituting within. You may hold the idea, like I initially did, that Montessori was synonymous with preschool. Some schools call the classroom for this age grouping casa, after Casa dei Bambini, preschool, or primary, and in the United States it is commonly referred to as early childhood. Some schools use Casa dei Bambini to refer to the entire school. Although 3 to 6 is the most common age group represented around the world in Montessori schools, Montessori education is delivered to ages infancy through high school. Here's a few more terms to help make sense of who we're talking about. Nido is Italian for nest and designates a Montessori environment for infants, usually from 2 months up to about 15 months, sometimes as late as 18 months. Toddlers are often grouped from about 15 to 18 months up to about 3 years old. Programs for 6 to 12-year-olds are usually called elementary, but it's further broken down into lower elementary, 6 through 9 years old, and upper elementary, 9 to 12 years old. In some countries, elementary programs are called primary. I know, it can be confusing, so look to your school for what the naming conventions are. You might have also heard another term that comes from German called Erdkinder. This translates to children of the earth, and it's a term that describes the Montessori learning environment for adolescents aged 12 through 15, sometimes 18 years old, and it connects them with nature, or in the broader sense, a microeconomy that they can independently learn through, whether it be at a school farm setting or an urban one. Montessori high schools are beginning to emerge globally. Montessori schools may be private or public, or may have a focus such as a religious or being nature-based. Montessori is even being applied as an approach with elders and those with dementia. Montessori schools flourish within every language and culture it is applied to. And today, there are an estimated 22,000 Montessori schools around the world located in 126 countries, a number that is growing. Okay, so you might be wondering, what philosophy and ensuing method of education can meet the learning of such diverse populations? The following principles intend to shed light on this very question. The first principle I would like to reveal answers to is the age-old question of nature versus nurture. Are we born with all the potential we'll ever have? Or are we born as a blank slate to be filled with ideas and learning from our surroundings? What neuroscience upholds and Montessori identified is the idea that the child constructs understanding based on their inherited biology in relation to the conditions around them. So in essence, there is a natural drive to develop, and the environment can enhance or mute potential. One tenet that upholds this principle is often called the Montessori triad. It is a hallmark of what distinguishes Montessori methodology as a progressive pedagogy. This triad shows the adult, the environment, and the child. The adult's role is to observe and equip an environment for the child's sensitivities and their well-being. They are responsive to their interest in development and temperament through arduous observation of the children in their care. The child absorbs and discovers ideas and concepts through their interaction with the environment and each other, prepared especially for them. So this principle shifts the role of the adult as seen in conventional learning environments where the teacher directly teaches the child or group of children and fills them up with information and then tests them at a later date to measure understanding. Instead, in Montessori classrooms at every age level, the adults prepare and maintain an environment within which the learner engages, and the adult is there to connect and support them with their learning. Substitutes are not stepping in to teach children. Your role will be to observe and support the environment and to keep students safe and engaged. The next principle is one that may be highly debated in conventional learning realms, where the basic academic subjects of reading, writing, and arithmetic form the goals for education. You see, Dr. Montessori observed what she called the whole child. She saw that the child's academic well-being is in relation to their physical, emotional, social, and spiritual well-being. In this, her approach addresses all aspects of human development. I'm often asked what spiritual education looks like in Montessori. And as a peace educator, Dr. Montessori was not suggesting religious training. She focused on the underlying mindfulness and sense of interconnectivity as cultivating spiritual sensibilities. In response to this principle of the whole child, your role as a substitute entails supporting every child holistically. I'll cover more about how to do so in the next video. Another tenet of Montessori philosophy is this idea of mixed age groups. Based on Dr. Montessori's observations of developmental stages, she identified planes of development and identified 4 distinctive periods of growth, each learning and building on each other as children and youth progress through them. The very first is the period of the absorbent mind, from birth through 6 years old. 6 to 12 is the age of reasoning and abstraction. 12 to 15, when youth construct the social, self-developing moral values and become emotionally independent. And 18 to 24 years, when young adults construct an understanding of the self and seek to know their place in the world. Today's research upholds these planes of development and upholds parallels such as the formation of the frontal lobe when a human is about 24 years of age. She saw these common characteristics along with humans' innate need to socialize and children's ease of learning from each other as solid evidence for mixing age groups for learning. Students of the 21st century need to know how to communicate and collaborate with all kinds of people. And Montessori classrooms are set up for more natural groupings to prepare you as a substitute for schools with classrooms serving students at different planes of development. So the first concept we'll look at is the absorbent mind, a key concept for those working with children from birth through approximately 6 or 7 years of age. And this term simply means the young child experiences an intense mental activity that allows them to absorb learning from their environment without conscious effort, naturally and spontaneously. The best example I can think of that might resonate with you is how we acquire language. As adults, we know how much harder it is to learn a language new to us. Yet as adults, we witness children acquiring entire languages effortlessly, sometimes more than one. They absorb context, accent, tone, syntax, vocabulary, really everything to be proficient in their culture. And they do so effortlessly without seeming to work at it. Dr. Montessori said in The Absorbent Mind, the child has a different relation to their environment from ours. The child absorbs it. The things they see are not just remembered, they form part of their soul. They incarnate in themselves all in the world about them that their eyes see and their ears hear. When we think of the implications of the absorbent mind, that the child effortlessly absorbs everything in their environment, including us, then the onus for their success shifts to us, the adults. For the adults do whatever internal and spiritual preparation we need and to prepare the environment for their learning optimally. Another tenet is the analysis of movement. When a Montessori guide or parent introduces a lesson to a child, they must first analyze each movement necessary to achieve that task. This analysis leads to economy and grace of movement and incorporates elements of indirect preparation for learning. For example, a lesson of table washing has about 54 steps, and each movement is carefully and gracefully demonstrated, including a large counterclockwise scrubbing motion necessary for writing lowercase English letters. Each movement of the task is shown slowly and deliberately, isolating the difficulty each step of the way. What's amazing to me is how the child absorbs this analysis and acquires embodied cognition or muscle memory, leading to greater automation of routines. This idea of the isolation of difficulty is a concept in Montessori where every lesson in the curriculum is broken down into the minute steps necessary to achieve the task. Each step focuses on the difficulty at hand, isolated in the presentation for the child to engage at their own pace. In this, your role as a substitute working with young children in their absorbent mind is to become more mindful of your own movement as it will be mimicked. Walking slowly and deliberately, positioning your body so that you communicate your attention and receptivity is imperative. Check your stress at the door, as it too will be absorbed by the young child and contribute to their sense of unease or the chaos in the collective movement of the children. It also means the teacher gives the lessons they are trained to do so. So the next concept I'd like to talk about is concentration. Concentration is both an overall outcome of Montessori education, and it's the direct aim of the teacher in introducing engaging, high-interest materials to their students. Deep concentration ensues when a child is engaged in something that matches their sweet spot for their skill set and their interests, and they're being challenged just enough. Freedom of choice is key here. It's at this moment teachers know that they've made the match. Your role as a substitute is to never interrupt the child as they concentrate. Intervening with a child who is attempting to interrupt a teacher while they give a lesson to another is another part of your role in upholding concentration. Another difference you might notice between a Montessori classroom and that of a conventional one is that there is a longer time with which students engage in a variety of topics. The 3-hour or great work period is a concept Dr. Montessori developed based on her observation that when children are left to work freely in an uninterrupted 3-hour period, students achieve a higher level of concentration in the second half than in the first. There is a natural dip between these cycles of concentration that is predictable, called false fatigue. Many schools provide 2 3-hour work periods, one in the morning and another in the afternoon. As there are no natural breaks for the adults in the classroom, ask up front the protocols you need to know for your own bathroom or lunch break. You can also ask if there's a plan for false fatigue to help re-engage the students. The Montessori child's activity is called work. It is a purposeful activity. Dr. Montessori observed that children learn through purposeful activities of their own choosing. Montessori schools call all of the children's activities work rather than play, giving the activity the construct adults value, which is work. Dr. Montessori said, a child can only develop fully by means of experience in their environment. We call such experience work. The work the children do with a material or within an activity is identified as a work cycle. Within the prepared environment, children experience a normalizing event every time they complete a basic work cycle. This just means that they choose an activity, they complete the activity, they return the materials to the proper place, ready for the next person, and their experience gives them a tremendous sense of satisfaction. Dr. Montessori said, a 3-year-old educated according to Montessori pedagogy becomes a master of their hand and undertakes with joy a variety of human activities. These activities allow them to develop the power of concentration. She said the satisfaction which they find in their work has given them a grace and ease like it comes from music. Beautiful. Your role as a substitute is to observe and trust the environment, and that the specifically created learning materials will teach the child. If you observe misuse of the materials or a student that isn't understanding a concept, refer to the teacher or other assistant in the environment or other students to help. Adults must stop any abuse of materials, yet get out of the way of the child who is constructing understanding through their engagement. So the next concept is called a control of error. Montessori materials are designed so that the child receives instant feedback as they work, which allows them to recognize, correct, and learn from their mistakes without any adult assistance. The control of the activity by the learner themselves strengthens their self-esteem and self-motivation, as well as their learning. The characteristics of feedback in this form of a control of error follow what we know about effective feedback from science. Feedback best serves learners when it is specific, timely, understandable, non-threatening, and most of all, revisable. This is important to understand as your role as the adult looks very different than in particular educational settings where adults have the knowledge and power to correct mistakes. Instead, your role is to step back and allow the materials to provide the feedback. If you are in a position to correct a behavior or to support their learning, there's an art to offering encouraging and curious feedback that allows the child to self-correct. And I'll address that more in the next video. One of the most often asked questions I receive about Montessori classrooms is why children are expected to care for themselves and their environment. And why do they spoon beads from bowl to bowl? Well, the answer is actually far more complicated than it would seem. Exercises of practical life are a Montessori term and an area of the curriculum that encompasses not only the domestic work to maintain a home or a classroom environment, it includes the self-care and personal hygiene and the grace and courtesy that enables a classroom to run smoothly. You'll see those beads being moved bowl to bowl in an early childhood classroom, not so much in elementary. But practical life skills are of great interest to children and is very purposeful work forming the basis of later abstract thinking. Each material and activity in practical life cultivates order and concentration and coordination, and they lead to greater independence. From sweeping up crumbs after snack to learning to blow one's nose in toddlerdom, this area is often considered the heart of the first plane classroom. And many children begin their day immersed in practical life. Likewise, older students in Montessori are encouraged to be independent thinkers and doers, and they are invested in the care of their own classroom. The tenet of independence is both a hallmark of Montessori and an outcome of the practical life exercises. So think of your role as less of a leader or teacher of children and more as an observer and assistant to their independence. Dr. Montessori wrote in The Secret of Childhood, "The first aim of the prepared environment is, as far as it is possible, to render the growing child independent of the adult." Adults new to Montessori often remark on how children magically seem to perform tasks typically done for them. Every day, we witness children's internal drive to serve their needs, from tying their shoes to creating labeled and painted world maps to managing entire businesses in the third plane of development. Our students are immersed in a climate built for their independence. It is our work as adults striving to create the conditions that enable every child to bloom naturally, to get out of their way, to provide just enough scaffolding. That's that wee bit of assistance that leads to their independence. And in this, we are not only paving the path for a capable human being, we're also setting the stage for auto-education, lifelong learning. Another great question I often hear is why elementary-age children are doing what seems like topics better suited for high school or college. You see, Dr. Montessori saw that giving children a vision of the universe in the hope that they will in turn find their own cosmic task or great contribution back to the universe means helping them learn more about the universe. Cosmic education helps children discover how all parts of the cosmos are interconnected and interdependent. In Montessori schools, children engage with an integrated curriculum with a guide who is a content generalist, usually between 6 and 12 years old, and they begin to learn about the universe, its galaxies, our solar system, and planet Earth, and everything that came before their birth to make life possible. As they develop respect for past events, they become aware of their own role and responsibilities in the global society of today and tomorrow. To educate the human potential, Dr. Montessori wrote, "The secret of success is found to lie in the right use of imagination, in awakening interest and the stimulation of seeds of interest already sown by attractive literary and pictorial material, but all correlated to a central idea of greatly ennobling inspiration, the cosmic plan in which all, consciously or unconsciously, serve the greater purpose of life." This idea of a cosmic education is first delivered in the elementary communities in 5 great stories that are told every year throughout the elementary years in many schools. These 5 great stories encompass the coming of the universe, the coming of life, the coming of humans, the coming of language, communication, and the coming of math and science. Your role is not to teach or correct students, but to ask curiosity questions that might spark their imagination. As a substitute, observe who is working on what and what materials or resources are at their disposal. This in turn will help you understand the scope of the Montessori curriculum. I've been referring to the environment throughout this video. The prepared environment is a place where the adults equip a space in a Montessori classroom with carefully selected, aesthetically arranged materials that are presented sequentially to meet the developmental needs of the children in their care. Prepared Montessori environments contain furniture sized especially for them, a full complement of Montessori materials responsive to their development and interests, and provide spaces for children to work in peace alone or in small or large groups. As students absorb or engage with the environment and its apparatus for self-education, it's imperative that the adults keep it maintained and constantly reflect on their affect as part of the environment. Montessori environments are orderly, beautiful, and entice the learner with interesting materials. Your role as a substitute is to support the reordering of the environment according to the guidelines offered to you by the guide or school leader. This may mean in an infant room, you are asked to remove mouthed toys into a sanitation bin throughout the day, or to set out the nap mats at a specific time and in a specific orientation in a toddler environment, or to return a stray work rug left out in a primary classroom to its proper bin, or to repair a torn poster on the wall of an elementary room, or even to support the student cleaning time in an adolescent environment. The care of the environment is essential, and you may be asked to contribute to the classroom team efforts with light janitorial chores, or to prepare materials, or to count all the beads in an activity to ensure there are enough. Okay, that was a lot. While this was a broad stroke on basic principles and tenets of Montessori, the next video outlines what is the most important aspect of your role as a substitute, that of respectful and effective interactions with students.